Black Myth Wukong is one of the greatest games I've ever played. If I judged games based purely off of how they looked. This game has some of the highest peaks and lowest lows of any game that I've played in recent memory. And a lot of that is to do with small little design decisions that just really bring it down. But let's start out with the good, because the good lives mostly in the beginning of the game. So when you start out the game, first of all, you get the best introduction cutscene that I've seen in a game in years. You get to play as the Wukong, who, even for someone who's never read The Journey of the West, like me, is completely iconic. You get on your Nimbus and you go flying to confront the gods, and you stand against an entire army on your own, and he's facing down this army and he basically says, "You're not strong enough." And everyone in this game talks with like Chinese poetry. It's a style choice, whether you like it or not. It doesn't ruin the game for me. But they point a spear at his face, and he literally grabs it and is like, "I've been needing a new back scratcher." He speaks like that, I don't know. But the way that the graphics are genuinely next gen. Like, next gen of next gen. I've never seen a game so good looking. When you spin your staff to do different combos, you're kicking up the clouds, and it's all rendered in real time. And as you're fighting, there's effects going on. There are dozens and dozens of beautiful cinematic cutscenes with like, the fighting scenes and choreography of their fights doesn't even... Like, it's not just good, but it's magically good, you know? Like, there are good fight scenes where it's good in that it makes sense and everyone is moving right, and it's like, oh, they're really fighting as though they're using sabers or swords or whatever they're using. And then there's magically good, where you add magic powers to the mix and try to make the choreography around that. Oh my god, there's a part where their weapons are clashing, right? Like, they're clashing their weapons in the sky, and they throw their weapons at each other. But the thing about, like, a lot of Chinese mythology is weapons are alive in their own way and have, like, their own preferences. Their weapons, after they clash, have a scene where they start bashing into each other on their own to keep fighting. Look, if you like Journey to the West, you'll love this game. Like, I need to just start there. You will love this game. Now, of course, they do the thing where after you lose the tutorial battle where you're playing as Wukong, you lose all the cool powers for a bit. But it's okay, because the game picks right back up, and the pacing of this first level is phenomenal. You walk like 10 feet, you get a new skill, new tutorial, new whatever, you walk 10 feet, you get another new thing, and this goes on for probably your first 10-15 minutes of gameplay. There's some unskippable stuff that, like, I wish that I could get through a little faster, but you're never lost, and there's always something to find. Leading up to your first big area, where any direction you go, you're going to find something interesting. There are 2 proper bosses here, and a mini-boss. And later on, you can get an item that opens up this waterfall that you find, and there's a 3rd hidden boss here that is like a major boss that's part of a whole side quest. And that's what I really love about this game. Anywhere you go, the reward for exploration isn't just an item. It is another boss fight, almost without fail. but especially in this first level. And it will keep you playing just for that, if you're someone who likes action game combat. On top of that, they did away, there is no souls or any, like, currency that you get for killing enemies that you can lose. Instead, whenever you beat something, you get experience points, and once you've capped those out, you can use your points to unlock a new skill. Now, I have a little bit of a gripe with this right away, in that some of the skills really feel like they should be base, because, just for instance, one is a longer initial lunge on your first light attack. So without this, your light attack doesn't move at all, so you don't jump at enemies when you press square. So you just swing in place, and it feels really clunky, or better initial dodging. So your dodge, one of the first upgrades you can get just makes your dodge better, but like without it, your dodge just feels bad? I can't call stuff like that worthwhile skills, but if you just play through level 1, especially if you're dying a few times trying to beat one of the bosses, it's very easy to quickly unlock those main skills. Also, you get introduced to transformations right away. Like, I know I'm going to keep hyping this game up for a while, because I want to talk about everything that it did right before I start talking about where it lost me. Because my first impression of this game, I was hooked, dude. You beat one of the 2 optional bosses in this area that I was talking about, and you grab his weapon. And at first I was like, whoa, am I getting a whole, like, new weapon? Because the way that this game works isn't you change your weapons, it's you've got your staff. So I was like, oh, am I getting a whole new weapon right here? But no, you actually get a new system called transformations, where you have a spell that turns you into that enemy you beat. So if you've ever played like a mod where you could play as the enemies of a game, that is just a thing that you can do base. There are certain enemies that when you beat them, you unlock the ability to transform into them. And it's an entirely new moveset. They all have different gimmicks. Some of them are just funny, like my favorite that I used all the time, and I know I'm probably weird for this, is this one where it's just a dude with a fire knife, but his de-transform skill didn't de-transform you. Instead, it was a self-destruct that did a shit ton of damage. So I would wail on bosses, light them on fire, and then when I was running low on my transformation, I would just and blow up everything on screen. It was okay. It is so good. There's boss after boss. The level design is tight and good, and the style and graphics, I'm not a person who even likes graphics, but dude, they are phenomenal. You cannot look at this game and tell me it looks bad. You can't, like, no matter how much you might hate the game looks incredible. And that only gets better in the second level, which is just not only a masterclass in, like, game design, but in level design. But before I talk about that, I do want to mention the core gameplay, right? Because this is one of the first big weaknesses of the game, in my opinion. It is a very outdated action game system that it uses. You have 5 light attack. You have a 5-hit light attack chain, right? So you press light attack 5 times and it ends in a big hit. And you've got heavy attacks. But you have no real way of varying them up. So your heavy attacks, when you press triangle, you've got a little bar you have a little bar on the bottom right of your screen, and it charges up as you dodge attacks and hit things with light attacks. When you press triangle, you spend all of that bar, which it can fill up to 3 times, but early game it's only 1. You spend all of that bar to do one big, really strong attack that hits for a ton of damage. And that's it. This attack takes like 4 seconds to do, 3 or 4. It's extremely slow, and it does hit really hard. The damage is more than worth it. You'll use these all the time. But that means that most of the game is pressing square and then pressing circle if you're going to get hit. There are only 4 spells in the game outside of transformations that actually do something to enemies, right? Like, the rest are just buffs. They don't really change how you can play. One leaves a clone behind that fights for a second and turns you invisible. You get a sneak attack out of it. One, you turn into a rock, and it counts as a parry. It is extremely lenient, so calling it a parry is a little bit not true, but then finally, immobilize, of course, and pluck of many. Now, pluck of many, you pull out a piece of your hair, toss it, it becomes 4 clones of you, and they jump anything that you're fighting. It's a really cool skill, gives you a new way to interact with the game. It's the only one that directly does damage as well. Like, I mean, every other one, like the parry and the invisibility you get damage out of, but the skill doesn't do any. And the final skill, well, I guess there's 2. One skill disables your ability to use magic, but gives you an attack buff. So that doesn't change how you play. In fact, it unchanges how you play. It makes it so all you can do is light and heavy attacks. And the other skill draws a circle on the floor, and while you're in that circle, you get buffs. The buffs are really good, but like, the circle is tiny. It doesn't last very long when you leave it, even with the thing that lets you leave it at all. And it's just very boring. Like, I don't know why I would ever willingly use that one. Now, that was kind of jumping ahead. The gameplay really is, you've got 5 light attacks, you press circle if you're going to get hit, and when your bar is full, you press your heavy attack button. I can actually show you every single move in this game in about 30 seconds, and keep in mind, you unlock these one at a time. It is very, very repetitive. The fun of the game is seeing all of the different bosses that there are, but the actual gameplay is dated. And that's the first gripe that I really have with this game that holds it back. No matter how good your presentation is, when you're 5 buttons and a heavy attack, it's just lacking. Now, there are 3 different stances for your heavy attack. There is smash stance, pillar stance, and thrust stance. So there's some variety, but that variety isn't really going to carry it. There aren't many interesting ways that you can chain these stances together. In fact, you can't at all. Like, in thrust stance, when you press triangle, you do a backstep with iframes, and if something hits you during those iframes, you get a special buff where you deal more damage to them for a bit. I was like, oh, it'd be so cool to do that backstep into one of the other 2 stances. And you can. It will always do your thrust stance follow-up. And of course, you only get this by pressing your heavy attack button while doing square attacks. It's a similar story for smash stance, where when you press triangle when you're going to get hit, you do a counter attack. This is, I guess, the true counter of the game, where you'll debuff the enemy, where you deal more damage to them, and you'll counter it with a heavy attack if you have 1 ball of heavy attack charge. I don't know. Having a light attack chain with 3 different possible options out of it, and 2 of them just being different flavors of counter hit, if you're going to be replaying this game, it will be because you enjoy dodging and fighting things, or really like the presentation. I'll come back to this because this isn't what made me dislike the game. Because the level design was so tight, the enemy variety was so interesting, there was always something new to see around every corner, and look, if a game has a good, engaging story, the gameplay doesn't need to be absolutely peak for it to be fun. You can have games where a lot of the fun is in the story, the action, and playing through the game, not just in gameplay. Not every game has to be Devil May Cry. But now I want to talk about the greatest level in this game, Stage 2, because I want to compare it to what came later so you understand why I say the quality falls off so hard. Now, originally I gushed about this level for like 5 minutes straight, but I'm going to spare you that and instead just play you the cold open of the level.
小施主来此的目的，老衲多少猜到几许。心急吃不着热面皮，暂且助你一臂之力。小心上路，再落得一身窟窿，可没人救。
And you hear his voice carrying in the wind as he continues his song. And you run through this canyon, still getting shot by arrows, but because you're an actual player now, it's not a big deal. And you make it around the bend. You see this massive tornado, and the entire level is based around getting to that tornado, which is the final boss location. One of the core pieces of level design for a game like this is your player should always have some idea of where they're trying to get to. I mean, that's level design 101 even. Look at, like, Breath of the Wild. You spawn into Breath of the Wild, and if you just look straight ahead, you can see the castle where the game ends. Now, you're not meant to go there yet, but you know where to go. You're not lost from the get-go. The tornado kind of serves as that. Every bit of progression you do is heading towards there. And again, there's fun enemies on this level, with a lot of, like, interesting attacks and moves. Even the basic, like, mook enemies that aren't bosses are fun here. But where this level design is absolutely peak is if you go one way, it loops around and brings you to the gate and the boss on the other side. So no matter which route you go down, you're not choosing wrong. It just all that it dictates is what you fight first. It's genius. Like, you know where you're going, you have this whole level to explore with a lot of little side areas, but no matter what, you don't need to double back if you want to fully scope out every side area. You can just do that. I mean, there is a side quest that requires doubling back, but, dude, it's not that bad, right? The game is tightly designed, the levels are beautiful at this point. This is where you unlock the stone power-up as well, which watching enemy attacks bounce off of you is really amusing. Oh, and this is also where you get your first secret interaction, right? There is a secret boss in the boss arena that gives you a key. Like one of the boss arenas that has the boss who is holding the key. There's a secret boss there who is sealed away. If you break that seal before you kill the boss that is initially there, you activate both at the same time. And at first I was like, oh my god, I want the little one to win. Because it's like a big rock and a little rock, right? The little rock is what you're meant to beat first. And I'm like, oh, I want to help the little rock win. As it turns out, there's a special cutscene of the little rock getting absolutely yeeted across the entire map if you try to help him win. The second that the big rock hits like 70% health, it just goes, I'm done with this, and finishes him. Which also gives you the reward for winning. It's so cool. It is the peak. But, like, if I'm talking about the game this positively, why am I saying that this game also has some of the worst moments that I've experienced in recent memory? Stage 3 would have made me quit. outright if I wasn't playing this game because I wanted to make a video on it. For all the presentation and all the beauty of this game, the biggest limitation that it had is that the gameplay is very basic. And it does get a little better. There's more build variety and stuff, but the build variety and the move variety comes from having end game amounts of points and end game gear. I'm going to jump in and summarize why I hate this level, because in retrospect, going on about this for 20 minutes isn't really entertaining. This level is almost entirely big empty fields that you have to walk across. There is no sense of where to go at any given moment. If you take a wrong turn, you simply reach a dead end. And one of the dead ends you can't do anything until you're about to beat the game at. So it feels like a massive waste of time. I'm talking like 2 to 4 minutes of walking between places with nothing to do. Speaking of nothing to do, most of the enemies on this level are extremely boring, consisting of these frozen basic NPCs that have like 2 attacks and die if you just smash square on them. The main bosses that you have to fight on this level are also extremely gimmicky and unfun. Instead of testing your ability to play the game, they test your patience. This all culminates in a slog of a level that makes you feel like you're moving at half speed because you can't get anywhere in a decent time, and it has none of the cohesion and tightness of the previous 2 levels at all. This includes a horrendous prison section where your health will randomly get cut in half just because you're there, and you have to climb from the bottom to the top of this circular prison, at times walking across these beams where archers try to shoot you, which, you know, Souls did it too, but the movement in this game is infinitely more clunky than Souls, making it doubly frustrating. Overall, despite a few standout bosses you can find, I'd say there is not a single good thing about this level other than looks. And it introduces you to some original Wukong or Journey to the West characters, which you'll find cool if you care about the Journey to the West. But like, gameplay-wise, I hate everything about this level. I spent the entire time on this level wanting it to end. And then all of a sudden, you walk into the final boss arena, right? And you see this incredibly ornate, like, diagram, I don't know what you even call them, but it is a miniature sculpture of like an entire, I don't want to call it a city, but it's an entire scene. It's like a model of a scene, right? And you fight the boss, and it's nothing special. And then the phase change happens, and he puts you in a bag of curses. You get a new transformation for it as he fills you with hatred or whatever, I don't know, Chinese mythology. Remember, he shrunk you down. When you come out of this, you are inside of the model, and all of the detail that it had suddenly makes sense. And all I could picture is some poor dude spending weeks, maybe even months of his life modeling these super tiny details by hand, knowing that they wanted to have 4K quality when you shrunk down and they went from being super tiny to being life-sized. Again, if I was grading this game purely on presentation, it's game of the year. It's game of the decade, because it has moments like that just blow me away. But it just goes back and forth, because this moment happens, and the next thing I know, I'm inside of a dark, dank cave with a drop puzzle as its main mechanic. And I have to clarify, you meet a lot of characters from Journey to the West. I've never read it, so they didn't really stand out to me, other than the destined one doesn't talk, you're a silent protagonist. So if not for these characters and scenes, nothing would be said. You'd just have people monologuing to you as you're sitting there like Link in Legend of Zelda, like, yeah. The game kind of starts recovering here. The enemies and variety in the next level are much better. The final boss of the next level completely loses me again. Because guess what? When he falls down to about 30% health, he activates a completely unavoidable, full, like, this effect never ends, where you get put in his domain, I guess, because the whole sky around you becomes a dome of eyes. And while this is active, you move at half speed, your stamina is halved, and he gets massively buffed and attacks way more often. This results in this fight where you can't roll unless you're perfect rolling, but perfect rolling is inconsistent, and I haven't even talked about that. In most games, when you want to do a perfect roll system, because dodging moves the character model a lot, you're dodging. What people will do is they'll take your character model, and when you press the dodge button, they make a circle around you. And if there's any attacks inside of that circle, you get a perfect dodge. Black Myth Wukong, either this circle is too small, or another possibility, which is what I think from when I was playing, it is on you, and when you dodge, you move. So if you barely dodge an attack as it's about to hit you, but by dodging it, you move out of the way, you don't get a perfect dodge. Normally, it's not the biggest deal, but they start throwing in attacks where the cadence is fast enough where if you dodge and don't get a perfect dodge, the follow-up will clip you, because it's like a 1-2. It also means that when they slow down your dodge rolling, you get this horrendous feeling fight where you dodge a move, you're stuck rolling in slow motion, and you get pounded into the ground. This was so ungodly unfun that I sat there and I just looked up what I'm supposed to do. Because I was like, well, it can't be this shit. Remember when I said this level starts with a drop puzzle? Turns out if you drop in one specific place and go beat up a cocoon, an enemy pops out. And then if you go find that enemy later in the level, after you've beat him the first time and fight him a second time, he opens up this wall, which is a complete secret area with its own set of mini-bosses. And by clearing this secret area, which is a mountaintop, I believe, you get an item that blinds the 100 eyes, which, in the Legend of Black Myth Wukong, in the Legend of Journey to the West, that's how this person is defeated, who had the 100-eyed monk, I believe he's called, is blinded by a needle. You can find that needle and use it to blind this boss. And it completely breaks his domain, staggers him, and brings the fight back to what it was. And that happens, and I go, this is the greatest game ever. That's so cool. How was I supposed to know that I could do that? Oh, read Journey to the West. Do you see what I'm getting at? The game has so many cool things that is held back by the rather limited core gameplay, right? Like, there's just not a lot to do in the core gameplay, and a lack of foreshadowing, direction, and kind of an incohesive approach to level design where they just get so long to run through compared to the first two. I made an entire build from level 4 onward based around just maxing my movement speed. I used a movement speed armor, I used a flask that gave move speed, and there was another one where when I cured my poison, I'd gain move speed. And I put poison in my flask and then cured it in the same flask because that works and that's cool. And then it let me run at the speed of light. And I'm telling you, if I didn't figure out that I could do this, I don't think I would have finished the game. Because boring walking with nothing to see, no matter how high res your rocks are, isn't something I want to spend my time doing. I'm going to talk a little bit about the final boss and the secrets, right? Because that's where this game really peaks. Kind of. So there's a true ending to this game. And you get it by beating the secret boss, who is the boss that you fight initially, but getting to fight him again requires doing a lot of asinine stuff. Mainly just 100%ing the game. Well, minus the final level, because, secret ending. This boss fight is brutally difficult, which mostly because if you hit him with any sort of ailment, which a lot of the better armor sets and weapons have an ailment on them, he buffs himself. And this buff is insane. Genuinely, I think this buff is too much. If you let him buff himself, he goes from hitting you for maybe a quarter of your health to just straight up one-shotting you. It's insane. And it's frustrating because a lot of the builds that you have access to at this point are ailment builds like shock, fire, poison. And then you watch him cleanse it and his weapon starts glowing. So in order to beat him, I had to use a worse weapon, but okay, whatever. The fight itself is incredibly good. It has he has a very stumpy range, so that's where I really noticed that perfect dodging is finicky. But man, once you beat him, you awaken your true power. I don't know a better way to... I don't know why you can do this, but you become a giant stone monkey, and you box the gods that you saw at the very start of the game, ending in fighting this guy's true form, and you beat it. And by beating it, you awaken as, like, the true destined one. And you also get... I'm just going to play some clips of the choreography and cinematography of it, because I can't do it justice, but... After all is said and done, you defeat him. He says, I understand now why Wukong let me win. And then you punch him in the face in probably the only time your character feels like a character. And you leave. You did it. You've beaten the secret boss, and he gives you his weapon, which is the first weapon in the game that has a different moveset from the standard 5-hit light combo. So if you can do it, why didn't you do it? It's the highs and lows. It really is. There are a lot of good fights. The problem I have is a lot of the fights rely heavily on knowledge checking you, where enemies will do these attacks that you will never dodge correctly on the first try. Like, one of them is literally an attack, and he's holding two weapons. He spins, and you see the other weapon fly at you so that it cuts through your screen like that. It can even cut through your character model, but it doesn't have an active hitbox. But if you roll that cut, he brings it around and down on you, so that it roll catches you rolling the light show. Anyway, in the final level of the game, you're coming back to the mountain to awaken Wukong, which has been your goal the whole time. You beat one boss here. It's not very fun, but you beat him. And by beating him, the Nimbus recognizes you as its master. And you just get a pop-up like, hey, press this button to call the Nimbus. And I go, oh, is this a cutscene? Nope. The final level, you can fully fly around on the Nimbus anywhere. Where was this on level 3? It is such a nice change of pace. The way this level works is you fight four more bosses. Every single boss gives you a piece of Wukong's outfit. So that's all it is. You fly around the mountain on the Nimbus, you find a boss, you fight a boss. There are many bosses to face here, and one secret boss, but they aren't hard, they aren't really noteworthy. It's a way to get some extra upgrade materials if you want. The only complaint I have here is one of the bosses is straight up a health and stamina check. Yeah, I don't know, it comes out of nowhere. I had to look this up, because I just sat here going, how do I get the ability to progress? And it turns out it's like, oh, you need to have enough burn resistance to survive this, and enough stamina that he can jump 4 times while you hold it. Okay. I thought it was an actual fight, so I just kept being like, when does he land and let me fight him? But no, it was a vigor check. Fair enough. Did I just die? But the game ends on a high note. You fight Wukong, or rather the empty vessel of Wukong, and you learn that you are his reincarnation proper, and it is one of the best final bosses ever. There's none of the inconsistency because Wukong uses an expanding staff, so if you perfect dodge, you're always getting hit by the hitbox of the weapon, so you always perfect dodge. He's funny, right? He does... If you try to sip your healing item while he's not doing anything, oh, if you get hit by his one grab attack, you get juggled by clones, because he uses the pluck of many, right? And after you get slammed into the ground, he laughs at you while posing with his staff and then kicks yours back to you. And again, I have to stress, the cinematography, or choreography, rather, of this game is top-notch. But how do you call a game Game of the Year when it has so many little design flaws, like the inconsistent perfect dodging, the really janky feeling movement, where if you're switching rapidly between directions, the character doesn't move in a way that feels normal. He just, like, gets stuck. Like, you can't shimmy in this game. If you try, you get stuck in a moving left and right animation. I've never played a game that has made me go so back and forth from wanting to drop it entirely to absolutely being unable to wait for what comes next. I don't think it's crazy to say that you should be running at twice the speed that you do by default with how big these levels are. Because that's not... The problem isn't that they're big, it's that they're big and you're slow. You don't feel slow in the first 2 levels because the levels are very dense. The one time you have to travel a lot in stage 2, it's a massive slide, so you're done in seconds. It's also got, like, a fun few places you can jump off the slide to get some items. It's engaging. It's the best game I've ever played in some ways, and it's completely 10 years behind the ball in others. And for a first attempt, it is incredible. This is the studio's first attempt at making a game. China doesn't have a game industry. But if somebody told me this game deserved Game of the Year, no, it just has too many moments that suck. And that's not a criticism to say the game is bad. I loved the game overall, but that's the thing, I have to weigh this was the high of the game with, if I wasn't trying to make a video, if I was working a proper job right now, would I have kept playing this game? And my answer is no. I never felt that way about Astrobot. Astrobot is fun the whole way through, and I bring it up because that is the Game of the Year. But it's just such an interesting game, because the core design is tight, but it really is carried by presentation, cinematics, choreography, and the gameplay is good enough. If there's any design lesson to take away from this game, I know this isn't really a video on its design, it's that there's a lot of little optimizations that bigger studios do that this studio just didn't really get right. From the clunky feeling perfect dodge, to the lack of variety in combos and combat, to, and this is what still bugs me, just the clunky feeling basic moving around, where they tried to make you very grounded in how you move, but like a whole second long animation because I wanted to go from walking right to walking left is a little over the top, dude. But yeah, overall, what would I give this game? A solid 8. Like, just on pure presentation effort, the final boss, like the final levels being so good, the story. And it's not like the story is unique, right? It's not going to blow your mind. But what it is engaging. Because everyone is talking like they're in a play. And it's just got that level of like hamminess to it that will make you smile if you're in the mood for it. It's also a game where I feel the best experience is had watching someone else play it. Because when you can cut out all of the miserable parts and only show the highlights, dude, the game looks like an 11 out of 10. Like, the highlights of this game, when you're not the one playing through it, are amazing. I think that about wraps it up. I've been talking for a long time. I need to figure out where I want to use Facecam, where I want to use gameplay, how I want to sync this up, if I want to add some skits in. And, yeah. I don't know. Next big video I want to do is, I believe, what makes good RNG. I also want to, of course, I'm going to do a video on the Everdark Sovereigns, because I'm very excited for those. But, yeah, other than that, till next time, see ya.